fresh plums. When you feel your muscles twitching, hydrate before the cramps come. He's got Grand Slam addiction, like Pokemon, he's gotta catch 'em all. Opponents catch afflictions, chasing Roller's ball. Make you put your shoes on and go dancing on the clay. You take away your legs, your soul, and share with you your pain. He don't care 'cause he's insane. Come on, cross court inside out. Living la vida Joker. He'll push and pull you around. Living la vida Joker. He prefers to slide, but it's been like Gumby. He enjoys the ride. Living la vida Joker. Living la vida Joker. Living la vida Joker. Woo! All right! Eat 'em on, eat 'em on.
Oh my God, wait till you see what he's gonna do at Wimbledon.
All right! Gotta be a local. Gotta be a Joker. Gotta be.
Welcome to the craziest tennis show in the world. I'm your host, Matt Bradshaw. Happy to be here. Happy to talk about a simple thing. Today's show, the topic is very simple, although it is what my life's work has led me to. All the hopes, dreams, thoughts, incorrect predictions, correct predictions, calculations, miscalculations that have led to this day that we must declare Novak Djokovic is the greatest of all time. You may have heard GOAT before. And I'm somebody, this amuses me. Somebody out there doesn't know what GOAT stands for, I'm sure. Yeah, everyone knows, but somebody watching right now is still not quite sure. It stands for greatest of all time. I feel like a word that you hear all the time in stupid commercials, every sport. You hear it all the time. But to me, I'd never heard it before until, I don't know, whenever you heard Federer and Nadal arguments for which one was the GOAT, the greatest of all time. 10 years ago, maybe it started. Anyways, I'd never heard that term before 10 years ago, but tennis kind of brought it to the mainstream for the whole world. And today we're going to talk about why Novak Djokovic is the GOAT. We're also going to look at a couple other things. Well, we'll talk a little bit about the grass season, which got rolling, but really it officially starts at Queen's Club in Halle. Although I know Francis Tiafoe won the Hugo Boss Open, and there was the Schertagenbosch Rosmalen Dutch grass championships that Tim van Rijthoven won last year, and everyone was shocked when he beat Medvedev and a few other top players along the way. Anyways, we won't get into that stuff much, but we'll talk a little bit about Medvedev, our first top player who maybe will have a shot at Wimbledon, who we've gotten to see play a bit. Yannick Sinner, another one. We remember him last year, had a good run at Wimbledon, having a chance to beat Novak Djokovic. Really the only one who even came close. How appropriate Mr. GOAT is here. Come, Mr. GOAT. Step right up to the most important show it's only the most important show we've ever done, Mr. GOAT. He's here. Anyways, we'll talk a little bit of that. But first, let's look at the big picture. Novak Djokovic returns to the number one ranking in the world, and Nadal is outside of the top 100 for the first time in, I think, a little over 20 years or a little under 20 years. Doesn't matter. About 20 years. Nadal, 136 in the world. Djokovic, now the big titles leader. We'll look at Andy Roddick's quote in a moment. Hello, Mr. GOAT. Mr. GOAT, an admirer of Andy Roddick. He heard the name Andy Roddick, and he came over here quickly. He especially loved Andy Roddick for his ability to always lose to the Big Three. Always a faithful loser to the Big Three. Something we like, us fans of the Big Three, Mr. GOAT. Named after the eponymous talking tennis cat, Mr. GOAT, named after the GOATs. Anyways, you can see here clearly, as Andy Roddick said, there is no numbers-based argument against Djokovic as the greatest of all time. There are a couple stats. One of them is the Olympic gold. Do we care that much about the Olympic gold? Comment below. I know Raw fans care about it, but to me, it's canceled out because Rafa has 0 ATP Finals victories and Djokovic and Nadal both have 6. 6 if we're still in French Open mode. 6 if we're in Halle. Zex, we will say. Anyways, 6, it cancels it out to me. All right, so not a big argument there. Roger Federer has 1 numbers-based, maybe 2 numbers-based statistical edges over Novak Djokovic. Would he trade them for 3 majors? Yes, indeed he would. In a heartbeat, he would trade them away for 3 more majors. Let's take a look at this. Weeks at number 1. So Roger has consecutive weeks at number 1, but not total. Novak Djokovic far and away with 387 weeks at number 1. And then there is this. And Mr. GOAT, I shall argue that maybe we should have seen this all along. Now, not that far back, about half the distance back to that. I once made a video, one of my early videos, and I said I had a thing called a Joker theorem, the Djokovic theory to what's going to happen with his career. And it was wrong. It was opposite. It was backwards. My theory was that Novak Djokovic is so hated by crowds, you know, when he gets booed, when he's doing good things or nothing wrong at all. When at Wimbledon, everyone's chanting Roger Federer's name, and Djokovic has to tell himself in his imagination that they're actually chanting his name over and over again, and that's how he won in 2019, is one of the things he credits for his big victory over Federer, and that, one of the most important matches in the GOAT debate, if you really think about it, especially if it's going to come down to, we can definitely say Rafa is the best clay courter of all time, and you can't say Djokovic can beat him there, right? I mean, even though he has the only one to beat him at the French Open twice, but you can't say Joker's a better clay court player than Rafa. There's no argument for that, and there's not enough time because Joker's not going to be winning when he's 50 years old, and I think he'd have to be if he was going to win like every single year and catch the record of Rafa Nadal at the French Open. But grass court. Who is the greatest grass court player of all time? Well, we've always said Federer, but Djokovic might have the most Wimbledon titles of all time pretty soon, and if Federer could have won that 2019 match, maybe that would have been impossible. But it looks certainly like that's going to happen. Anyways, let's go back to this, though. Like I was saying, my Djokovic theorem was that people were so anti-Djokovic that it would just be too much of a mental burden for him to shoulder, for him to carry, and that ultimately he would fail, even though maybe he is the greatest, but people hate him so much or so against him and so pro-Roger and Rafa, at least you can say that, that it would hurt him and it would derail his chances to take all the records. Obviously, it hasn't. It has made him stronger. It has made him the most mentally tough player in any sport, I say. In any sport, the most mentally tough athlete of all time, Novak Djokovic. Right there with a Michael Jordan, a Kobe Bryant, Wayne Gretzky, whoever you want to throw at me. Pele, I don't know anything about football. But, yeah. Anyways, let's go to 2011. This is a stat I'm sure you've seen around. This is a much talked about stat right now. If we go back to the beginning of 2011, Djokovic has 1 major. Nadal has 9. Federer has 16. Who would have thought at this point that Joker will be the greatest of all time? Not many. But if we look at that year, what Djokovic does, and we see what he does in the individual head-to-head from then on, I think maybe we should have known, even going back, maybe not to the beginning of 2011, but if we went back to the end of 2011, we might have had a clue of what was coming. And there were definitely people back then who said it. Maybe they were crazy Joker faces, crazed Joker fans who were just, didn't even believe what they were saying at the time. But it came true. Doesn't matter. In 12 years, Djokovic has won 22 Grand Slams, Federer 4, and Nadal 13. That is an insane stat. But to me, this is what made me think back then. I'm not going to be telling you here that I knew all along over 10 years ago that Djokovic would be the greatest of all time. But as a big Federer-Nadal fan, and really not even so much as a Nadal fan back then, as a Federer fan, I enjoyed watching Rafa suffer. Take a look at what happened, and this is not the first time Djokovic wins 7 matches in a row against Rafa Nadal. 7 matches in a row starting in 2011 going into the Australian Open of 2012. Djokovic beats Nadal 7 times in a row, including on clay 2 times in Rome and Madrid. Maybe we should have all known back then when this happened. Now, at the time, I thought this is all well and good. Djokovic will not beat Roger Federer at Wimbledon. Maybe he'll beat him on hard courts from now on. Okay, we'll take that. Maybe he'll beat him on clay, even though I think he didn't. Then wasn't that Roger's finger wag in 2011 at the French Open? somewhere around there. But we thought, all right, Djokovic might knock Nadal out of the way. Some of us Fed heads were thinking something like this. Comment below if you were one of them back then. We were thinking Djokovic is now going to, take Nadal out, and then Federer will be there to clean it all up. Nadal and Djokovic will destroy each other, and then Federer will always be there in the end to hold up the trophy, at least at the Wimbledons. Anyway, so maybe that was a clue to what we should have always known going back. We'll revisit that in a little. I'm going to say a few more things here, then we'll look at some grass court stuff, and then we'll dive deep into the stats. Andy Roddick says there's no numbers-based argument against Djokovic. Well, we'll take a closer look at that. And even though I'm going to tell you right now he's right, we're not going to find much. There's a couple things for Federer you could say are special stats that Djokovic, it's impossible for him to get at this point in his career. But as we go through the numbers, it becomes very obvious. Come back up, I almost said Mr. Joker. Maybe that's what we should call him. Mr. Goat is Mr. Gotovich. There he is. I like what Rick Macci, the former coach of Andy Roddick and the Serena Williams sisters, Serena and Venus. I like what Rick Macci said. I think this is a good way to think about the big three. If we don't take a numbers-based argument and we just think about what they mean to tennis from now until eternity, I think how Rick Macci put it is the best way to look at it. First off, he talks about why Djokovic is so special. Djokovic mentally has trained and wired himself to look at adversity, disappointment, and problems as his best friend ever. Hard to argue. And then this is the part that stands out to me. Federer looked the best. Comment below if you disagree. I think we can all agree not to say anything about Djokovic or Nadal. Their strokes look awesome. Djokovic's strokes look really smooth, really perfect. The timing is like the best ever. Hits the center of the strings all the time, right? But Federer, I think we can all agree, looks the most graceful as a tennis player compared to anyone in the history of sport. Nadal grinded the best. I was watching some highlights of Nadal and Djokovic. I see it all the time. You look at YouTube or Instagram, they throw them at you if you're a tennis fan. And many tennis fans, like myself included, can't look away. And I was watching how Djokovic was timing the ball, taking it early and looking so perfect. But Nadal just kept hustling down outrageous gets from the side of where the crowd is to the other side where the crowd is over and over again. I think it was that 2012 Australian Open match I was watching some highlights from, actually, now that I remember. And yeah, while Djokovic wins that match and Djokovic looks incredible, the timing, we've seen him make amazing gets. No one grinds like Nadal. We'll give him that over Joker. And then Rick Macci says, Joker is the best. I think it's hard to disagree at this point. Djokovic, he says something that's even more special to me. The truth is, yes, Mr. Goat? Mr. Goat wants me to point out that he has always been a Djokovic fan. And he has always said, even in 2011, that Joker will be the greatest, even though he was born in 2015, I think. Yes. Anyways, Djokovic said what I've always thought. The truth is, I shouldn't say always, but what I've thought in recent years and what will explain why I'm such a Djokovic fan and I root for him, especially against the losers from the next gens. The truth is, I have always compared myself to these guys, Roger and Rafa, he means, because those two, Roger and Rafa, are the two greatest rivals I've ever had in my career. I've said it before many times that they have actually defined me, Djokovic, as a player in the crocodile shirt. And all the success that I have, they have contributed to it in a way because of the rivalries and the matchups that we had. Djokovic continues. Gotovic continues. Countless hours of thinking and analyzing what it takes to win against them on the biggest stage, For me and my team, it was just those two guys were occupying my mind for the last 15 years quite a lot in a professional sense. In every sense. Anyways, really quick, before we get into the numbers and all that and really debate this thing, which there's not much to debate, but we'll look at it. We'll do a definitive, honest, objective look at the numbers in the Big Three debate. But there's really not much there for Raw fans except that Olympic gold and, like I said, a couple surprise stats from Roger Federer that really attest to how amazing his run of dominance was. Anyways, going to the grass season really quick. Nick Kyrgios, our finalist from Wimbledon last year, has withdrawn from Halle, so that's a bad sign. I think he's got a knee injury. And I want to look at Danny Medvedev, who I'm very curious to see. We've already seen some guys like Jannik Sinner, Tsitsipas, some big names, have some disappointing results in the early grass court season. Things really, Djokovic, put it this way. He never plays warm-ups. He played the Granola Bar Open one year, I think, and I can't remember if that was the year he won or lost. These tournaments don't really matter. Roger always played Halle. Sometimes Nadal played Queen's Club. Wimbledon is, obviously what's going to matter the most. However, I do like to look at Queen's Club and Halle, especially to see like who's going to be the guys that lose to Djokovic in the quarters and semis, right? So we take a look at Medvedev. First off, let's roll this clip. There's a few guys, coaches I like to watch on the YouTubes and the Instagram, mainly the Instagram because they throw stuff at you and you just can't help but see it. Great play for Marcus Giron. But look who's in the crowd. I really like this guy. I always forget his name. But he has the My Tennis HQ YouTube and Instagram account. Anyways, I thought that was pretty cool. I think his name's like Karu, something like that. Anyways, he was there. This was an interesting match to me just because I wanted to see how Medvedev looks. Medvedev and Djokovic, very similar. There's a few things I like about Medvedev that are kind of the same things we see from Djokovic. Djokovic's serve is such a big part of his success now. Look at Medvedev. That's going to be effective at Wimbledon against anybody. And then the return. Look at this low, deep bag. And look at that one-legged forehand from Marquis Giron. So he got the opening with that bag, and he crushed into the corner so low. Anyways, just want to point out, that's something that Novak Djokovic does extremely well, taking the ball early, keeping it low. I don't like the first serve return as much with Medvedev. There's I don't have the clip, but there's one where Marcus Giron hits an easy, not super fast or anything, slice serve, ace in the deuce court, just because Medvedev is all the way back at the wall. Like, that's not the greatest thing. You'll see Djokovic step in for those first serve returns more. But on second serve returns, Medvedev, highly effective here, and maybe we'll see him adapt a little bit. Hey, Mr. Goat. Maybe we'll see him adapt a little bit on the first serve return. But anyways, my point was that that's what Djokovic does so well. Balance, movement, taking the ball early, keeping the ball low. Wimbledon is a good place, I think, for Medvedev, Jannik Sinner as well. And not so good of a place for someone like a Tsitsipas or, as we know, Rafa Nadal, even though he managed to overcome all the challenges on grass and win a couple Wimbledons. But Medvedev, I think, might do well. I'm very, very curious to see him there. Maybe Francis Tiafoe. He just won a tournament, top 10 for the first time. We'll keep an eye on him. He's got a flatter ball, too, and that weird forehand does stay a little bit flatter. So maybe he'll be able to have some success. But obviously, Djokovic is going to win this thing. I mean, I just can't imagine anyone stopping him here. Jannik Sinner was the closest one to do it last year, and his game does kind of lend itself to the grass like Medvedev's, but he's already had some struggles, not at the best point in his career right now. Anyways, let's go under the hood and look at the numbers and really figure this thing out. Okay, first stat we're going to look at is one it's pretty funny, actually. I don't love this, but, time marches on no matter what, so of course this is going to happen eventually, but I don't love that 9 of the top 10 are next-gen players, but I do love the fact that Djokovic is still on top and would have been this whole time and never would have let any of these bozos go ahead of him if it weren't for the weird math with taking the Wimbledon ranking out, not giving points at Wimbledon, and, of course, keeping Djokovic from playing all these big tournaments where he could have racked up a lot of points, especially this year. This year and last year in the U.S., outrageous. Anyways, 9 of the top 10 played in the Next Gen tournament, which was a branding, marketing operation by the ATP to get people to know some of these younger players while we still have people watching because of the big three. So when they're gone one day, people will know these guys. Anyways, so yeah, there you go. That's the stat of the day. Let's move on to my other stats, my big stats. And first, look at this. How many songs do I got to make praising the Joker for people to realize I like Djokovic? Poor Matt. It must be a painful period for him. This is I guess, right after Djokovic won. Matt must still be in tears since Novak's win, according to James Hunter. I mean, that diss track I made a couple years ago now after Djoker won an Australian Open. And I was really hostile towards Roger and Rafa, I thought. Especially, I kind of made fun of Rafa in that video. Was that not enough? Well, the Joker, living La Vida Joker should be enough, I hope. I hope that's enough to convince people that I don't hate Novak. And I got to admit something, too. Looking at footage for that video, the music video for La Vida Joker, the 2010-2011 U.S. Open footage, right, where Federer has match points and loses to Joker. I was watching the press conference because, back then, I got to say something, and Fed fans don't get mad at me. I'll always love Fed, and I'm going to enjoy watching highlights of him more than highlights of Joker for the rest of my life, probably. Although, I want to watch both, of course, to be fair to the Joker. But, back then in 2011, I didn't watch tennis. I watched all the majors, and I watched a lot of Masters tournaments and other tournaments too, as much as I could, But I didn't watch press conferences. It was harder to get a hold of them back then too. I don't think you could just hop on YouTube and find all the post-match press conferences right after they happened back then. But if I would have back then, I might have my liking of Federer might have took a little hit, because I don't know what word to say, but, let's say Taylor Fritz like. Roger Federer, he says something, and I'd heard this before years ago, and I guess I didn't know the context or investigate it, but they say, how do you feel when you serve? The big serve, it's in the music video. He hits the cross-court slice serve, and Djoker rips a forehand winner cross-court on match point. And then the crowd, Djoker has to put his hands up and say, come on, give me some credit for that. That was amazing, and the crowd goes nuts. And they were asking Federer in the press conference, and his behavior in that whole press conference, and again, this is a brutal loss, serving match points, not as brutal as 2019. Federer is much younger, but he's not as young as Taylor Fritz, I don't think, at that point. Or close maybe, but definitely a little older. He was a little Taylor Fritz-like in that whole press conference, despite the tough loss. And one thing kind of struck me as ridiculous is they said, what do you think of a player like that who hits a shot like that? And Federer said, I don't play this way. I believe that you should rely on your skills and your fitness and hit the right shots and do the right thing. And a shot like this just must be something he did maybe back in his junior days. You'll have to ask him. But, playing in this manner, it was like Federer was above when you're down match points, just ripping a shot. And he's right. Some of the stuff he said was correct. Sometimes you're in that position, you don't really care anymore. Your mind is already kind of moving into the locker room, and you just swing away and hit some winners in kind of out of frustration too. And a lot of times they go in because your body's pretty loose, because you don't really care about the match anymore. You already feel like you lost. You have nothing to lose, which you can make a case. Djokovic has felt like he's had nothing to lose for a long time, because especially when the crowd's always against him, because they're going to love Roger and Rafa the most no matter what. So Djokovic get not much to lose, looking at it that way. Anyways, if I had seen that footage back then, I probably still would have loved Federer, I'm sure, but I wonder if my opinion of Federer would have dipped a little bit, because looking at it now, it makes me think like, okay, I see why some people thought he was kind of arrogant and Taylor Fritz-like back then. Anyways, all right, that's enough hating on Federer. But, what do I got? I see comments all the time. People think I hate Djokovic or something. What do I got to do? Moving on. First, let's do the Google test. I typed in is into the Google. By the way, this is not my personal. I'm not logged in. I did the privacy mode that some of you may be familiar with on web browsers. Don't know why anyone would use privacy mode, but I used it so that it wouldn't be biased by my history of searching tennis-related things all the time. I wanted a raw, average person, not a tennis fan, just is. What happens? Is Reddit down? Is Juneteenth a federal holiday? Is Temu legit? Is Rael? Isabel May. There was a funny one. Is bronchitis contagious? Okay. Is never have I ever over? I think it is. Is Netflix down? Is Desi culture, by the way, for my Indian friends out there and Pakistani friends out there watching Coffee Break Tennis. I'm an admirer of the Desi culture, so I know about never have I ever. Anyways. Or maybe I've taught some people tennis lessons who've told me about it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I still get credit. Is Netflix down? Is Niall Horan married? Don't know him. Is nuclear energy renewable? The geniuses that we have Googling in the USA. Is New York still orange? Is nicotine bad for you? Is nicotine a drug? And more geniuses from America. Is North Korea communist? You don't say. All right, where's Novak? I told you it's not mine. It would have immediately went to Novak because of if it saw my search histories. Is NO? Is North Korea communist again? Is North Carolina a red state? Is noon AM or PM? Is Noom worth it? It's not. Just get MyFitnessPal. Is Noom free? It's definitely not. Is norovirus contagious? All right, that's enough. Is NOV? Okay, this is the disrespect, right? If you type is R, you might even already get Roger or Rafa. If you type RA, I think you get Rafa guaranteed. If you type ROG, you definitely get Roger. The first RAF, definitely Rafa. If we type is NOV, we still don't get Novak. So much disrespect to the legend, to the GOAT legend, Novak Djokovic. Is NOVA, I almost went into German mode. Nothing. No Novak. All right, let's just type it. Is Novak, what do they ask? What is the first thing they want to know? Is he the GOAT? Is he vegan? Is he injured? Is he the GOAT? Twice at the top. Is he playing the French Open? Because we're scared that he's going to win it since Nadal's not. All right, is it a Jewish name? It is not. It's a Serbian name, which is right below that. All right, is Roger, let me go to RA. Let's see, where is it? Is ROG, Roger comes up. Is RAF, Rafa comes up. Is Roger, what do they ask? Is he retired? That's not good. What if we type in the whole Rafa? Is he retired? That's the top search. The Google test passes for Djoker. He wins the Google test, right? People want to know, is he the greatest? Whereas other people want to know if his big rivals in the big three are retired. Anyways, Roger, speaking of retired, he's obviously retired. And I saw that he said, he watches a lot of tennis, and that was kind of interesting to hear that he checks tennis scores a few times a day, and that, he thinks the level's going up and up and up, which I guess supports the weak era theory a little bit. But I'm not saying that. We're going to look at that in a moment. You know what? Maybe we'll save the weak era for the Wimbledon draw show, because this show's already getting pretty long. How are we doing on time? Anyways, what was I saying? Oh, more interesting to me was they asked Roger if he plays a lot of tennis. He says no. And he says he's still waiting for the body to recover, and hopefully he'll be able to get the body healthy again and play some exhibitions. So that supports my theory from the past that Roger and Rafa will be retired and playing doubles and Lavers Cups more, I think. And if not, maybe they're not going to put themselves into the Laver Cup. Although I would see, didn't James Blake just play a doubles match on the ATP Tour recently? I think they could get healthy enough to where they both feel comfortable playing ATP level doubles after retirement and still feel like they'll have a good chance to win, of course. Anyways, that was my main point. I thought it was interesting to hear that the body is still not healthy enough to play exhibitions. And I wonder if Rafa is going to be in a similar boat. We sure hope not. All right, let's look at the big stats. And if we have time, we'll analyze the weak era theory. I came up with a very scientific system that I might have to save for another show, but it will be interesting. Comment below if you're interested in hearing my mathematical formula for determining if it is a weak era during Roger's dominant period, which Nadal, interestingly enough, one argument you can make for Nadal, maybe the longevity, although Djokovic is going to pass him in that. But Nadal, if you look at it, his peak is during Roger's peak, but it's also during Djokovic's peak. His dominance era is definitely the longest. And let's go to the first stats so you can see exactly that. First off, look at that. Tough to make any numbers-based argument against the Djoker being the best. If you're making an argument against it, it's likely based on feelings and not records. Congrats on 23. Yeah, he's right. So let's look at these big numbers now. Obviously, Djoker is weeks is number one. He's far and away with it, but not in consecutive. Roger's got him in consecutive, and that's something he's not going to be able to pass. Although, if there hadn't been all the weird ranking stuff the last couple years, and Djoker had kept on number one for a while and could do it for a few more years, that's asking a lot as great as he is. Maybe he would have had a shot at it. I don't know. Roger's got him on the consecutive. Djoker's got it overall. Overall is... Which would you rather have? Ask yourself, honestly. Would you rather be ranked number one in the world the longest or for the longest streak in one go? Overall, longest sounds like a bigger accomplishment to me. Anyways, more year-end number ones, of course. Grand Slam finals. He's been in the most. ATP finals. He's won the most. He's been in the most Grand Slam finals, and he's won the most Grand Slams. He's tied with Federer, could easily get to 7 this year, next. Maybe not. He didn't win a few for a while until last year when I was there and gave him the good luck he needed. Masters 1000, you can make a slight caveat for Roger Federer because they weren't as big of a deal back in his day, so maybe he played it with less... he didn't, target them as much as Djoker and Rafa did for a while, although Djoker ain't doing it now. He's still going to win some of them, but the 4 tournaments a year are important to him. Let's see. Ranking points, that's not too... obviously Djoker has the most. He's won the most in 1 year, although if you look before 2008, that doesn't really count because Djoker wasn't winning a lot before 2008. Win-loss percentages, Djoker's got all of them beat in this. Pretty incredible there. against top 5, against top 10, you freaking name it. And, of course, he's got them beat in the head-to-head. He's got Nadal beat head-to-head, and he's got Roger beat head-to-head. Nadal's is very close. Will they play again? Who knows? Might be at Laver Cup. Maybe they'll play together in doubles. Will they be on the same court playing against each other in a real match, in a major? We sure hope so next year for Rafa. Big 3 wins, big top 5 wins. Oh, big 3 wins, he has the most, obviously. Top 5, top 10. Head-to-head against the other two. Yep, you see it right there. Consecutive Grand Slams, blah, blah, blah. Consecutive ATP Finals. I mean, he's got it all there. Consecutive Masters. Consecutive weeks is number 1. There you go. Roger is almost double. We'll see. You know, maybe if Djoker can stay at number 1 long enough, we can talk about the years where he should have been number 1 and all the weird stuff with Wimbledon and keeping him out of these tournaments kept him off the top ranking. But I don't think that's even possible. I'm not doing the math on it. Most slams in a season, maybe. With Djokovic, anything's possible. Most slams in a season, they're all tied, but this could be the year that Djoker wins 4. I mean, talk about taking the lead in the Grand Slam count and winning all 4 in 1 year. What else can the guy do? Most top 10 wins in a season, a lot more. 31. Federer at 19. For all the times people have argued that Nadal had a weak draw at a major and didn't play any top players, at least he's 5 ahead of Roger in this record. Maybe it's only one season when it happened. Maybe on average, Nadal had some easier draws, but everyone gets easier draws sometimes. Look at Djokovic now. He's got to play all these next-gen babies. All the draws are easy from here on out, right? Kidding a little bit. A little. All right, let's move on to this. This is interesting to me. Let's look at Roger. Let's look at 2011. Right? Roger winning all these weak era slams, as some would argue. And, I would say what Roger was saying, the level's getting better all the time on average. I think maybe back then it was less likely to lose to some guy ranked 100 in the world, right? Or 120. Like we just saw with Alcaraz recently, lost some guy outside the top 100 in Rome. But I think the top players back then, like I want to know which one of these next gen guys is going to beat Andy Roddick in his peak. And right, 2009 Andy Roddick or 2006 Andy Roddick, any of those years where Roddick was good on grass. Which one of these is Tsitsipas going to beat Andy Roddick? Is Tsitsipas today or last year or the year before, any year where Tsitsipas thinks he's got his best chance? Whatever, next year. Is he going to beat 2009 Andy Roddick? Who's going to beat Andy Roddick? Maybe Medvedev at Wimbledon? I don't know. So, I look at some of the top players from back then, and that's where I have a hard time saying, like, okay, are these guys weaker? Anyways, we'll talk about weak era. Yeah, we're not doing that today. It's going to take too long. We'll get into that in another show, maybe during the Wimbledons, maybe in the draw show. Probably the draw show would be a good time to do it, I think. Anyways, you can see after 2010, Roger doesn't win hardly anything until 2017. Of course, the 2012 Wimbledon against Andy Murray. But 2011, that final he lost to Rafa in the French Open. Let's look at the Djoker. That 2011, everything changes, right? He wins 3 in 1 year. Only could have won all 4, maybe. Would he have beat Rafa? I don't know. In 2011, people thought it was possible back then. And then Roger, right? No one was talking about Roger's going to beat Djokovic or Nadal at the French Open, but they were talking about the way Djokovic kept beating Rafa everywhere. Maybe he'll have a chance at the French. Never happened because of Roger Federer. Anyway, so you can see from there, only wins the Australian Open and then a Wimbledon in 2014 and then 2015, another incredible year where he was not too far off from winning all 4 in 1 year. Of course, after 2016, some personal issues I've heard in the past describe what happened, right? Roger had mono in 2008, and in 2016, after winning the French, I've heard some things about Djokovic's personal life that maybe held him back. 2017 and 2018, half of it, we know what happened. Andre Agassi ruined things for Novak Djokovic, and I think Radek Stepanek was part of that crew. And of course, Djokovic had some injuries, which I know some people that hate Djokovic were probably really excited thinking about those elbow injuries from back then and seeing him wear an elbow brace this year as he was getting ready for the French Open. Didn't work out that way, did it? 2018, halfway through, Djoker has entered a new period of dominance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 majors. So almost equaling that stretch of 2011 to 2016 and 2018 to 2023. And I think he's going to win more. I don't see how he's not going to win Wimbledon. And then here's what I was talking about. Hit the music. We're going to get out of here. Here's what I was talking about. If you look at the dominant streak for Nadal, it's kind of because he wins the French Open pretty much every year. It never ends, right? We can see that Rafa from 2005 to 2022 has won a major almost every single year. Almost every single year. Whereas, Djokovic and Federer have some longer gaps in there where they're not winning as much. But my one point was, if we go back to Roger really quick, here's the stat that Roger has over Djokovic that I think is a really cool stat that is, worth pointing out. From Wimbledon, 2004, all the way to where is it? I believe it's 2013 Wimbledon when he loses in the second round. Roger never lost before a quarterfinal. So again, that is exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years in a row where Roger Federer is not only winning a ton of majors and making a ton of finals and semifinals, he doesn't lose before the quarterfinals and hardly even does lose in a quarterfinal for a 9-year stretch. If you look at Rafa's numbers again, he never comes close to something like that. Yes, you can say he has the longest period of dominance as far as at least winning a major. But every tournament, 4 tournaments a year for almost 10 years, that is incredible. And even the great Djokovic, if we look at him, where can we see a streak start? We can see one starting in 2009 quarterfinals at Wimbledon. Doesn't lose before the quarterfinals for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. 7 years. So just a couple years shy of Roger. Really impressive streak there. But I like Roger's better. And am I doing the math right there? Did I get it? Yeah. 7 years. That's really something. 9 years, Roger Federer. No one's going to beat that streak. And we're talking about quarterfinals, at least the semifinals, at least streak. Roger's got that one too. Anyways, thanks for joining us. Sorry we didn't get to analyzing the weak era theories. I came up with a way to measure, top players from different eras, from Roger's dominant period, the middle of that, to the more recent dominant period with the next-gen players that Djokovic is having right now. And I came up with a scientific formula to analyze that better. We'll do that in the near future. In Denea, I promise. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us. And we will be back in 1 week to do the Wimbledon Draw Show. See ya.